Boating, and in fact the marine industry, is really big in Seattle. It's a large part of our history and everything we do. In fact, Seattle has one of the highest per capita boat ownerships of anywhere in the world. Keeping the people out here safe on the water every day is a big job, and that's what the Harbor Patrol does. Lake Union is one of the busiest areas that we have, and that's why the Seattle Police Harbor Patrol headquarters have been here on Lake Union since the 1960s. The history of the Harbor Patrol goes all the way back to 1877. Back in those days, there were very few roads from city to city around the Puget Sound area, so almost everything came and went by boats. Because of that boating traffic, the city of Seattle actually established a harbor department, which was headed by an elected official or an appointed position called the Port Warden. The Harbor Patrol was headquartered down at the foot of Washington Street. Today, it's the site of a public boat launch. In the early days of the Harbor Department, they had different tasks. They kept record of all of the cargo coming in and out of the bay, the ships as they would come and go. They collected port fees. They also responded to boats in trouble, enforcing speed rules, looked for people in distress, recovered bodies and evidence. They fought pier fires, keeping navigation lanes open, looking for debris, much like we do today. Patrol boats are an important part of any marine unit. Back in 1912, the Harbor Department only had one boat. At that time, the Port Warden asked the city for a car, and of course the city told him no, said that cars don't work very well on the water and this is the Harbor Department. What would we need a vehicle for? He eventually was able to prevail and he got the car, but that cost him his boat. The boat was given to the police department, who at that time really didn't have a marine unit, wasn't really interested in maintaining a vessel, and actually ended up letting that boat sink at the dock. The Port Warden went back, raised that vessel, refurbished it and put it back into service, and that boat actually served from about 1908 till 1941, when it sank while responding to a call over off of Alki. Communications on any marine unit is an important part of what we do every day.
They've got the swimmer, they've located the swimmer, she's out of the water.
It's how we get along, it's how we understand what's happening out there. It wasn't any different back in the early 20s. Back in 1920, the Harbor Department actually operated one of the region's first commercial radio stations, radio station KPE. And they broadcast from Washington Street Dock. They used that to talk to the other patrol boats in the area. In fact, they used that to communicate with all of the ships in and out of the region. The 1920s were a very busy time on the waterfront in Seattle. We had things like prohibition and rum running. The Harbor Department was involved in chasing those boats up and down the bay. So during that period of time, the Harbor Department actually began to expand and added on several additional boats. The 20s were also sort of famous in the Seattle area for one of the murders where an individual named James Mahoney killed his wife, put her body in a trunk, and threw it into Lake Union. The police actually recovered the trunk and brought the body back up and solved that crime.
Once you're in the water, you'll signal the team you're ready to descend and receive confirmation from all divers before beginning descent.
Diving is an important aspect of the Harbor Patrol unit, and we've been involved with that for years. Back in the early days of the Harbor Department, they were actually using the old hard hats. We had hand bellows and foot pumps to supply air down to the divers, and as technology grew, so did some of the tools. Today, we dive at least 8 hours a month to keep our skills up. And, we're going to do a lot of different things underwater. Diving for drowning victims and victims of foul play and crimes, or evidence, as a matter of fact. Criminals think it's a great place to dispose of weapons from a crime. So it's not uncommon for us to go out and conduct evidence dive for firearms, guns, knives. Diving has also taken on a new challenge post 9/11. Divers are also trained to be able to go out and look for underwater explosives or parasitic devices, conduct a search of the hull of a boat, conduct a search of the front of a pier, making sure that area is safe. And, as any large city has with bodies of water and bridges, we know that people will sometimes try to end their lives by jumping off those bridges.
We got a body.
And that brings out our divers to try to recover the victims so that we can bring some closure, at least to the rest of the families that are out there. Fighting marine fires has always been a function of the Harbor Department. It's probably part of the reason why back in 1942, the role of the port warden was transferred to the fire chief, and he operated both the Harbor Department and the fire department until 1959, when it was transferred over to the chief of the police department, who continues to this day in the dual role of port warden and police chief. So the Seattle Police Department continues to respond to water-based fires. We will usually get in there, make an initial attack until the fire department's on scene. And once the fire department comes in, then we work very closely with them. We bring them aboard with us, and we let them direct the fire attack from our vessels as we continue to operate them. And it's a relationship that works pretty well. At the transition of the Harbor Department over to the Police Department, the Harbor Department was relocated to the current home here on the north end of Lake Union, adjacent to Gasworks Park. During some of the remodels of the harbor station, we were able to put in a helipad, creating the Water and Air Patrol. The Water and Air Patrol operated out of the harbor station until about 1977, when a tragic helicopter accident took the lives of a couple of Seattle police officers, and that became the end of the Air Department, or our helicopter unit at that time. And the Harbor Patrol has continued to operate out of this station since. Our station here is the hub of a lot of different activities. In fact, our Seattle Police Pipe Band, the pipes and drum team that's been recently formed, uses our helipad as an area to practice their marching and their drums. The harbor station is a small community inside of a large city. We have a lot of hardworking officers out here. We currently have 28 sworn members of the police department on a full-time basis out here. They're all, good swimmers. Every one of them are divers. They're all self-motivated, and they like to be on the water. So it's kind of a fine mix between just being an enforcement arm and coming out and actually being part of the boating community, interacting with the people that live and work on the lake every day. It's very rewarding to be able to come to work and be able to help people on a daily basis and actually immediately know that what you have done has made a difference in somebody's life. When you pull out a couple of people from a boat that's capsized, and because of the coldness of the water and the way they're responding to you, that they wouldn't have been here for a few more minutes had you not arrived when you're there. You know that what you do every day makes a difference. When you drive around the lake and you interact with the communities and the businesses, and they know you by name, and they wave at you and they talk to you and they call you on your cell phone because they got a problem they need to deal with, somehow you're making a difference in people's lives.
That's okay. Have a good day.